hate to say it, but it has to be said. The final season of Blitz is about to begin. Skirmish season number 13 will be the official send-off of the format in any competitive nature or event. And so if you want to send it off with style, if you want to know what's the bleeding edge of the meta and what you can expect to see at those top tables, how you can combat them, and what sneaky hero you should pick, you're in the right place. So we're going to talk about that right now, and there's no better place to talk about at the start of it all than the winner of the previous season, that is Florian. Florian was the top dog of the last Skirmish season, had the most wins, just barely over Kayo, so we'll start by talking about him. And spoiler alert, I still think he's one of the best heroes in Blitz. He has all the answers to just about every hero in the meta, towards the top of the meta. I mean, you're looking at Florian, and if you're playing in an aggressive meta, you can take him and just throw a bunch of D-reacts into the deck, and then slow the game down and chip your opponent down with like double rune chant into Reaping Blade, right? You can just play that game plan. If you are playing in a slow meta with a bunch of like fatigue guardians or whatever, well, you can build the like Scepter of Pain version and just like OTK people right in the face. So either way, you have some play and you have some answers into just about everything. Now, there is one hero that absolutely eats his lunch, but I think that has to be a hero that is incredibly well executed in order to do that. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But if we're making a tier list, Florian here deserves to be in the S tier. I do think he's still perhaps the most powerful hero in the format, plus or minus a couple of heroes that might already be on the screen. Nevertheless, there are some other heroes we need to talk about, and one of the other top point getters from last year was none other than Kayo. I say last year, it was like 2.5 months ago. So season 12 had Florian at 25 wins, Kayo at 24 wins, and Kayo is still very good. Don't get me wrong, but I think Kayo's stock is going down, or at least it deserves to go down a little bit. If you find Blood Rush Bellow, Kayo is still broken, because Blood Rush Bellow was always one of those cards that was incredibly pushed. It never really had a downside, and yet it somehow was never hit like some of the other card draw cards were. And because of that, Kayo finding Blood Rush Bellow can just do insane stuff. But I do think his stock is going down, and deserves to, compared to some of the other heroes that are now at the top of the meta. And that's simply because in order to do his overrate busted things, he has to find Blood Rush Bellow. So if you want to gamble a little bit and just go for the Blood Rush Bellow game, you can do that. And sometimes like 6 into like 6, I guess, 7 into 6 is what it would end up being. Sometimes doing that 3 times in a game and making your opponent just like block on the third one will win you the game. So maybe he's still just good in that respect as well, because 6 into 6 or 7 into 6 or 6 into 8, those are all pretty good numbers. And then of course Blood Rush does some crazy stuff. But I am saying this right now, I do think his stock is falling. I think I'm going to keep him in the A tier. I do think, well, no, there's going to be so many people that play him that I think he maybe just on numbers alone merits the S tier. But man, my stock is falling, and it's because of some of the next heroes we're going to talk about. And I feel like I'm just going to talk about the one that I has been on the mind. I have to talk about this hero because this is, in my opinion, the hero that should have gotten more love last season and therefore more wins last season. And it's a hero that is still just as good, even though she ate 2 bans, and that's freaking Aurora. This deck is so stupidly powerful that it took 2 bans and it's still like the 3rd or 4th best deck in the format. Look, I just want to pull this up. I just want to go over here to Fablazing data and take a look at this. So pop over with me. So here's the Fablazing Talishar data. And as you can see, a lot of people are playing Blaze. Look, I am probably half of those games. I'm probably, no, that's not true. Not in 1 month. I do account for a percentage of those though. More than like 0.5%. I probably account for like 5% of these games. I could calculate that later. But besides Blaze, Kayo's up here being pretty heavily played and maintaining a solid win rate into some of the better heroes. But I think a lot of his wins are being attested to by eating up some of these lower tier heroes as we scroll over. I do want to point out that he has a pretty solid win rate into Aurora on paper. But this is what I wanted to talk about. Aurora is a hero that on paper doesn't look as good, at least on these stats, doesn't look as good as she actually can be. She is perhaps the quintessential, no, she's the second most high rolly hero. The quintessential high roll hero in this format is Data Doll, hands down. But she is perhaps the second highest high roll hero because she can do some nuts things off of the back of Arc Lightning, giving go again to like E-Strike or Exude Confidence, allowing them to go into like Plunder Run, into like, I don't know, Flittering Charge, draw a card if it hits, go again off of like Lightning Press. She can go find an attack if she has a non-attack action card. Aurora is one of those heroes that is just really cracked in general. The problem is that she does have some silver bullet type interactions where you can just kind of blow her up. Like Blaze can stop her dead in her tracks if she shocks off of like the double card. Florian can like, I literally watched a game earlier. It was Aurora versus Florian, and Florian just like blocked with a couple D-reacts and threw the hat in front of it and stole their last card, keeping them off Arsenal and from playing a snatch, and they kept a 2-card hand. So there's like blowout potential against Aurora, but when Aurora actually finds like Arc Lightning on turn 0 or 1 on a 5-card hand, you can heavily expect 20 damage plus coming at you in this format. So she's a hero that was well played, heavily played last season, and she was like the 4th or 5th best point getter, but it was like within 1 win of some of the other heroes around her. So unfortunately, I have to say it, Aurora is quite powerful and quite potent. Why do I say unfortunately? Well, because Aurora, in my opinion, is one of only 2 bad matchups by the one hero that I am going to be playing in Skirmish season, and that's Blaze. Blaze is so good. She's so good. And yet, she's almost like an illusionist. She has polarizing matchups. She is quite potent. In fact, I would say she has a very comfortable matchup into the best deck in the format in Florian, and an approachable plus matchup, I would say a winning matchup into Kayo. So if we're looking at just the tier list, which we can pull back up here, if we're just looking at the tier list, she is comfortable into these 2 heroes. But the data doesn't do this justice. I think she folds to Aurora, especially a good Aurora player. The data right now says that it's just a little bit bad for her, but I don't believe that. I have played the matchup enough. I would consider myself a good Blaze player, one of the better Blaze players perhaps. I will toot my own horn because I've put 1,000 games on the deck, and I don't buy this matchup. And I think that is a super dangerous thing for her. So if you're taking Blaze, one, you've got very good options into these top 2 decks. And you have one matchup that I think is very difficult. There's some opportunities for tech, but very difficult into playing into Aurora. The rest of the field, though, outside of literally Prism 2, this hero right here, the rest of the field, she is feeling great into. So if you know how to play Blaze, if you have like executed well on Blaze, and you are not playing into an Aurora/Prism meta, I think she is a very comfortable take into a lot of different tournaments. I will be taking her out for a spin to say my goodbyes as well. But those are the first 4 heroes on my list, but they are not the only 4 you should be thinking about, because the data suggests a couple of very interesting things. Now, one thing that we should definitely talk about is the fact that Arachne Solitary Confinement is quite a good assassin that has aggressive potential and can activate things at reaction speed in a way that really messes with like an Aurora or maybe even a Blaze to some degree. Heck, any of those heroes that aren't just playing like 9+ D reacts, like something crazy, right? So Arachne Solitary Confinement is a very solid assassin on paper, but some of the data is actually suggesting that Arachne Web of Deceit while underplayed, might be one of those sleeper picks for you to sneak in and grab some wins with. Now, I do believe Season 12 did feature solitary confinement as the more, winning assassin. Correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. Someone look that up if you have the capacity to. But I do believe that Arachne Web of Deceit is starting to show up, and I think I can pull the data for this. So Arachne Solitary Confinement is here with 463 matches, and you can see Arachne in general has a pretty solid matchup into Kayo, has a terrible matchup into Florian, kind of a middling matchup into Aurora, and not so good into BLITZ, even though you can just kind of like high roll and get kind of crazy with it. Some pretty solid matchups into some of the other like pretty A tier heroes and some B tier heroes. But take a look at this. If we scroll all the way down and we come out here to skipping past Prism, the double prisms there, which we can talk about later. Arachne Web of Deceit, if we pin him to the top, this is where things get interesting, because here's a hero that can play disruptively and can play, in some ways aggressively, but also has a little bit of defensive capacity. If you've seen the Arachne from the Classic Constructed, this is the new Arachne. Solid into Kayo, not great into Florian, but this is what I would look at. If you're looking at Aurora as being a pretty solid matchup, or a solid hero that you're going to expect to see a lot of, Arachne Web of Deceit might have the ability to disrupt that hero in a meaningful way and slow the game down. So if you're looking for an assassin and you're looking for something that might get you a couple of sneaky wins in a format full of heroes that you're probably not playing against, I'm going to throw Arachne Web of Deceit up here in the A tier, because I think there's something there. Now, I could be wrong, so let me know in a comment below, but I do think that Arachne Web of Deceit is quite interesting. And I do think Arachne Solitary Confinement is consistently one of those powerful, aggressive, not really disruptive, but attack reaction based aggro decks, kind of like what Aurora can do. So these two assassins you need to have on your radar. Now, there is one more hero that I do want to talk about and feature, and that is the other Earth hero. Verdance fell off the face of the freaking earth in the last season because they took away Stormstriders. And in doing so, the the most popular, we'll put it that way, version of Verdance, which was the Anothos Verdance, where you send a 1/4 and then follow it up with Waning Moon, all on a blue, so it represents 6 damage. That version of Verdance, you can't really play that version to the same degree. You have to start to shift the deck. Otherwise, it just didn't exist because you couldn't get a kill on the opponent's turn. But people are starting to play this version of Verdance that you're seeing pop up in Classic Constructed, wherein you do these mini combos, you play kind of a stompy build, but you have more spells than you did before. And now you just like play your Fellings, maybe you play your Plows, but you have all of these like random spells. Heck, people are even throwing out Waning Moon, and they're starting to add in the other staff again, the Surgent Aethertide, and they're putting like potions down and they're just doing the combo thing. Verdance is starting to show back up, and the data is showing that on Talishar, it could also be representative of your local meta, so keep that in mind. But here, not very many games played, but Verdance, the other Earth hero, doing Earth hero things, pretty solid into some of these other top heroes like Aurora, like Florian, and heck, even Kayo. Now, this is a small sample size, but it's large enough that you can start to see some trends. I will say this is a wrong graphic. I will say that the Blaze into Verdance matchup is Blaze favored firmly, which is hilarious because when Stormstriders existed and Verdance was playing the more Anothos style, this was heavily favored in Verdance's side. Now it is, I would say, heavily favored towards Blaze if the Blaze player knows what they're doing. That being said, it's not unwinnable for Verdance. So this is a hero that I definitely think should be back on the radar. If you play Verdance, if you like Verdance, this is a hero that I would actually put somewhere in this ballpark towards the top. I would say this is perhaps maybe the top couple of heroes in this format. And then you get a little bit spicy. I do think that if you're looking for high roll potential, I think you should definitely take a look at Data Doll, which is somewhere. Here she is. Data Doll is a high roll central. I think she can beat anyone on any given day. She's one of those heroes that can definitely just win the race, but she can also just absolutely lose, especially to some of these bigger heroes like, for example, Kayo, who can just run her over because she has 3 cards in her hand, and some of them are no blocks. So she does have the capacity to high roll someone off the face of the earth, and she also has the ability to absolutely be pushed off a cliff. And then you also have to talk about 2 more heroes in my mind. One of them, you're never going to guess, one of them is like fatigue, hard fatigue, like Yoji or Terra. These 2 heroes, depending on your meta, can absolutely win the entire thing. If your meta is expected to be like decently mid-range and aggro, or pretty decently like I don't know, Blaze favored or whatever, these 2 heroes have the capacity to be built in like this really degenerate hard fatigue version, even without Count Your Blessings, and you can like play into most heroes and just fatigue them out. The same thing is actually happening in Silver Age right now with Oldhim, and it's disgusting and shouldn't exist in Flesh and Blood because it's like one player playing the game, which really sucks because in a format like that, well, that's another story completely. Either way, what we're looking at here is the possibility for fatigue to be a thing in your local meta, so you do want to know like what players are going to be showing up, what decks do they like to play. If it's something like this, then those heroes can do some work into some of these and be very disruptive and very slowing of the game down. If that's the case, then definitely consider dusting off Dromai, because Dromai would be very good. I do think Dromai in general is very good into most heroes in these top tiers, except the hyper aggressive ones. But even some just stabilization with dragons and playing defensively means that you can play into these 2 heroes and still just kind of get around their defenses. But the final hero, you're never gonna expect me to say this, because I don't even know if I would have said this, but I've been playing against this hero off and on. It's not Vincent, though I do think Vincent is good and probably like in that A to B tier. A hero that almost no one would be like picking up and playing, but they should be, Levia. Levia with Blood Rush Bellow in a 20 health format, if you're not prepared for it, just blows you up. Absolutely blows you up. And I'll prove it because the data actually shows this on Talishar. If we just scroll down, Levia, only 220 matches played, a 56.4% win rate. She blows up Blaze, or she can blow up Blaze. She blows up just about all the other heroes. Now, the heroes that are really slow and methodical, like Florian and in some cases Verdance, they are doing pretty well into Levia. They kind of slow the game down until she just kind of runs out of threats and dies to blood debt. She races the Kayos of the world, and I actually think that this result is probably not indicative of how this game goes. She can like have the stumbling effect where she just doesn't quite get things going, and she probably loses to Aurora. So in most cases, she's probably not like this A tier hero. But man, if you've ever been high rolled by a Levia, you know what I'm talking about. This is a hero you do need to worry about into most formats, that you just have a good Levia player that's in your locals. That's one you want to keep your eye out for, because they can just hit Blood Rush Bellow, get some good banishes, and absolutely just end your tournament run. There are some other heroes here that I could talk about. I could go on ad nauseum with this. If you want an exhaustive video where I literally rank every Blitz hero on a tier list before the end of the format, let me know that in a comment below. I've already gone on longer than I expected to, but to me, this is that bracket that you'd want to watch out for. Maybe you can argue Dromai actually down here, and maybe like this up there. Depending on how hard and degenerate the fatigue is in your area, this might go up here as well. It really kind of pivots around, but these are the heroes that I see doing quite well. If you don't like dark horses, take this one and move it down here. These are the ones that were good last season, plus or minus Verdance, but even she showed up and showed out. These are the ones that you should keep your eyes on. And the way that they kind of fight each other is super interesting because Florian is pretty solid into everything except Blaze. Kayo is pretty solid into everything except Florian and Blaze, in my opinion. Blaze is pretty solid into these other heroes except Aurora and except Prism 2, which I didn't even talk about, but Prism doesn't unfortunately get to be played as well in this meta because this meta kind of just eats her. And then there's a couple of these outlier heroes. Oh, Aurora gets eaten by Florian in some ways, and Aurora can get eaten by Kayo. So Aurora has a great matchup into Blaze, but Aurora folds to these two heroes from time to time. So it's really an interesting almost triangle or like square meta between these four heroes, plus or minus the other three that can come in and do a thing. So that's where Blitz is at right now. If you want more Blitz content going into these last couple of weeks of the format, let me know, because it's always been a darling to me. This format has been the love that I've had for Flesh and Blood. I'm really sad to see it go from competitive play, but I will be playing it every time I get to go to a side event in like a major event. I will be bringing a Blitz deck so that I can run these out there, and we'll see where the format ends up. But of course, if you appreciate this kind of content, let me know that in a comment below. Make the number go to the other number. And as always, thanks for watching.